comes on board, the richest and the poor, all these lonely kids have so much left to live for. So we'll run to the sea and find no captain waiting, for we're all that we need to keep this boat from sinking. Abandon everything you know, sail with us and we'll show you what it means to be alive. Go all hands on deck, stick out your neck from the sea. A pirate's life for me. Are running here today. Cowards and the brave are all the king does save. What little piece is left of their imagination, 'cause the rest is adrift deep inside the ocean. Abandon everything you know, sail with us and we'll show you what it means to be alive. Go all hands on deck, stick out your neck from the sea. A pirate's life for me. You can change the way you look, trade your hand in for a hook, scratch your head and wonder why it's always storming when you cry. But when that line of blood comes out, in some ways it reminds you how you were before you got too old to believe in stories you were told. But all those fantasies are true, fairies, mermaids, pirates too. But all your growing eyes can see depends on how much you believe. So everything you thought you knew, like no one being there for you, just trust me that it isn't true. This is our ship and we're your crew. Everything you know, sail with us and we'll show you what it means to be alive. Go all hands on deck, stick out your neck from the sea. A pirate's life for me. The best is yet to come, the treasure and the rum. The best is yet to come.
Wait. Hi. Hi, everybody. It's me. How we all doing today? I'm doing vibin'. I'm vibin'. I am not going anywhere today, but I am fully dressed, including shoes, because this is the outfit I wore yesterday and I was really feeling it. And I like it, so I'm gonna keep wearing it. Look, it's definitely Muzz! It's definitely Muzz, and absolutely not anyone else. Certainly no one else has gotten hold of her phone, or anything like that. Nothing of the sort. Decidedly. Well, folks, I really like Fortnite Festival. I mentioned this yesterday, so I'm just going to leave it at that. That's the update, the my life update for today, is I really like Fortnite Festival. I'm still considering after the chapter cutting the recording and I mean, I'm pretty sure on Twitch I already have VODs off, so like I could just stream that if I wanted to, I think. I don't know if anyone would care to watch, but I could. I don't have to not. I don't know. We'll see how we're doing after the funny. The funny. Ooh, bah, 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 bah. Well, folks, I have nothing else to talk about. So I'm gonna talk about the stream now. Okay? Is that cool with you? Or is it warm? My fingernails may need a bit of a trim. Well, in that case, there's a well in that case, in case you were not aware. Welcome, all of y'all. Dude, the well in that case? Dude. The well is in that case. Not even a joke. The well is in that case. You can look. You can open up the case and find it. It'll be right there. No bullshit. No jokes. Just wells and cases. Anyway. Welcome, everybody, to the 34th installment of Your Words Destroyed My Planet, the stream series. Every time that number goes up, it gets a little bit more insane. If you're new here, why? If you're new here, welcome. Why would you start at chapter 34, but welcome all the same. My name is Harper, but you can call me KK. My pronouns are they, it. If you're new, please read the rules, be chill, and have a good time. What's going on is what thou seeth. No, that's not it. What thou dost perceive before ye. Does that work? Is the information box thing for Your Words Destroyed My Planet by Unda, which is a 1,000,000-word Homestuck fic that focuses on Dave Soulcat, my beloved. It is an AU set in a future where Earth and Alternia have been consumed by a mysterious force, and humans and trolls have escaped on spaceships for their survival. As of now, it is currently unfinished, but who cares? It's good. It's like really good, and you should read it anyway. In this stream series, I do aim to read the entire fic out loud by myself. 'Cause I'm crazy. Do take note of the tags on this fic. We're looking at them right now. Be aware that you may be in for the discussion of some sensitive topics. Do whatever you need to do in that regard. If you would like to read back approximately what I just said, you can type !fic about in chat. If you'd like a link to the fic itself on AO3, save it for later, hit the old subscribe button, hit the old send it to a friend or an enemy or a stranger or a not stranger or yourself but on a different blog. You can do any of those things. Exclamation point fic link will take you to chapter 1. Exclamation point fic song is a brief explanation of a very special feature of these streams, which is the pre-recorded song sequences. This command sadly cannot tell you which song is happening at any given moment, because that would require me to update the command regularly. And I am the forgetter. But that's okay, because one thing I have not forgetted is... Are you kidding? Brother? Brother? Brother, is this what we're doing? Is this what we're doing today? Are we really doing this today? Because I was under the impression that we did not need to. Way back? Way back, though? Okay. As I was attempting to say, just because exclamation point fic song cannot tell you what the title of the song that's happening is, does not mean you have to go without answers, because the answers are inside of my brain. And then exclamation point fix sorry is just a couple of disclaimers / apologies that I should really edit and make it be like, I'm sorry my router hates me. That's what I should apologize for. That's what I should really apologize for. Because holy fuck. Fix sorry does not, in fact, mention that. It's more about things that are actually within my control. Well, not really. But, things that I did as opposed to things that my router did. Whatever. Finally, you can use exclamation point VODs to get a link to my YouTube archive, where I'll be putting every VOD for this series, as well as anything else I may stream in the future. Except probably Fortnite Festival, because that's just a bunch of licensed music and stuff. And honestly, I'm not a very verbal rhythm gamer unless someone else is talking to me, so it probably won't be very interesting to watch. I mean, let me know if you do want to watch that, but, you know, probably no one will want to, and that's okay. VODs for this, however, I'm very diligent about putting them up pretty much right after, by which I mean I'm very diligent about starting it pretty much right after, but then the upload takes longer than can hold my attention, because there's not a whole lot that I need to do before it finishes uploading and processing. So I tend to walk away during that, and then sometimes I forget. But people remind me. You're welcome to do that. And so those will typically go up right on the same night. Or at least here in the western United States, it's still the same night. So yeah, I try to get those up pretty quickly. for your viewing pleasure. Especially considering that, as I noted before, I think that my VODs on Twitch are turned off still for copyright reasons. So yeah. Sorry, my brain shut down. I was too busy imagining a parody of YMCA. That's DMCA. Anyway. With all of that pre-stream shit addressed and taken care of and acknowledged and stated out loud for the record or whatever. Well, it's not fun to stay there. But that's how come it would be a song parody, and you could change the line. So yeah, with everything addressed, mentioned, acknowledged, stated, recorded, verbalized, etc. What is there left to say except for welcome to Your Words Destroyed My Planet, Chapter 34. You breathe out a tense sigh and drag your hands through your hair as you look at the door Dave just left through. Honestly, that could have gone a lot worse. You were entirely prepared for Dave to punch you in the face, and after everything, you wouldn't have even blamed him. All the same, you still feel really shitty for pushing him so hard that Bro could make him shut down like that. I don't think I fucked that up completely, you say slowly. He'll be fine, Gamzee says, with an unbothered shrug that you think speaks more to the fact that Dave has always had to be fine, rather than how hurt he is or isn't. I think that was mostly on Bro, not you. Dave wouldn't have agreed if he wasn't okay with it. I still can't believe Bro beat Sai, though, Solix says unhappily. After the whole Bro thing, it seemed sensible to get the differently alive members of your party to make themselves scarce, since this situation really didn't need more people adding their opinions or getting murdered. Sai will be fine. That probably wasn't pleasant, but he'll be fine, Aradia assures him, though Solix still doesn't look happy. Yeah, Solix and Matuna always handled losing at something to someone else really well. I'm sure they don't get that from Psionic. I'm sure this won't escalate, you say flatly. If you think that's bad, it's gonna be worse when he finds out what Bro just said and did. He was already weirdly protective of Dave and tried to keep Bro away, but Solix winces a little at the thought of how that's going to go. So long as me and Dave have our shit ancestors around when we need to balance, I don't care what yours does to them, Gamzee says simply. Come on, we should go, Aradia prompts you all. The three of you are all awkwardly herded out of her front door like very uncoordinated livestock, all of you trying to get through the little hallway and door without stepping on each other, because Aradia is really getting you out of there at some speed. You're a little relieved that Dave isn't still lingering around outside. You're not sure that you can deal with causing him any more hurt than you already have. Not that you mean to, of course, but that doesn't seem to stop it happening. Aradia leads you off down the way, and you fall into a pattern of four, her and Gamzee at the front talking, and you and Solix behind. What about Nepeta, though? Gamzee asks Aradia. I really don't know. I get the thought, but, right now, between all of this and the new ship, Aradia trails off. If that's even happening now, Gamzee shrugs. But we have to, Aradia starts. Not if we're cut off. We'd only separate them too, Gamzee points out. We get Reader at some point, though, so we have to, she counters. Hadn't thought about that. Gamzee acknowledges, with a slow nod of his head. Solix's elbow makes contact with your arm, and you look over to see his expression of concern. I'm okay, you answer quietly to the unspoken question there. You look like you're overthinking things, Solix points out, which is true, but still, you'd have preferred to not be called out on it. I'm not sure it's overthinking when it's something this big. I never meant to hurt Dave like that. I was only trying to stop something awful, and I messed up things for all four of you, you say. You feel like the worst person in the universe. It's blatantly clear that this whole system is exploitative, and Dave was shoved into it without any thought as to whether he agreed. That much is evident. But it's also pretty apparent that there was a stability in that system for them, too. You can't speak for Aradia, but you get the feeling that Dave and Gamzee were both harmed by the secrecy, but also used it as protection so they could ignore what was going on. They went through hell and then learned the rules of a system that they could work in. It was bad, but it was a kind of normality. Here you are, swinging wildly through the architecture of their whole lives on a wrecking ball as you destroy the whole thing and scream about morality. You hope to hell that you're right, that you do make things better in the long run. If you don't make things better, then you destroyed so much and hurt people you care about for nothing. Hey, let's not count me in this. I have no idea what's going on or how this normally works. I can't tell the difference between balancer chaos and Karkat chaos here, Solix says lightly, touching his fingers to his chest like he's acting all fancy and formal about it. It's a lot of work, but I'm not devastated. Besides, Damara said things were different in the time she's in, so this was always going to happen. Honestly, I'm excited to see how it all plays out, Aradia adds with an excited wave of her hands. You catch the glow of the tattoo on her hand as she moves it, and you can see the ones on Solix's middle fingers too. Tilting your head, you get a better look at the scales on Gamzee's hand. They're the same as Aradia and Dave have, but not Solix. Why are yours different? You ask, touching Solix's tattooed finger. Oh, I got this because I saw Dave balancing and didn't zone out or something and not notice it. The scales are a balancer-only thing. I'd get those too, but my tattoo artist is temporarily blind. Also, I'm not sure there's all that much point in them since everyone knows who we are now, and there's a regular tattoo that I actually want Dave to do first. Solix answers with a shrug. Your eyes drift to his shoulder, where he definitely had a tattoo in your dream. Aradia, do you dream of the future? I mean, do you see it in your dreams? I'm not being metaphorical here, you say, in an effort to be clear. Metaphorically, you dream of a better future. Quite literally, you dreamt yourself into a room with Solix and Dave to get a secret password from the future. They're different situations. No, I don't. But I have other ways, Aradia answers. You said that ghosts tell you things that haven't happened yet, but you've always been able to do that. That's a psionic, spooky ghost thing. Wait, was that a void thing this whole time? Solix demands, and Aradia turns and walks backwards just so you can all appreciate her devious little grin. See, I did tell you things, Aradia laughs. Alright, but what about dark balancers? What do we get? Solix protests, looking at Gamzee for help. You can see the past whenever you want, Gamzee says, looking at Solix out of the corner of his eye. Really? Dave never taught me... Solix starts. It's called remembering shit, Gamzee finishes, and Solix scowls at him. Sorry, Sol. Future people are just cooler, Aradia chirps and turns back around quickly, getting Solix in the face with her long hair and making him splutter to get it out of his mouth. You don't have much extra time for the debate about whether light or dark balancers are cooler, and in all honesty, it's likely not a debate that you're going to be devastated about skipping. The reason you're so out of time for it is that the four of you have just arrived at one of the larger sporting arenas on the ship. This one gets changed out from sport to sport depending on the season, so everyone gets a chance to hold big games. You're not an avid follower of sport of any kind, more an avoid follower of it. Mood. So, you don't know who was meant to have the arena around this time, but from the chill in the air, you're going to guess one of the sports that requires the central area to be an ice rink. The setup, as it is now, is that the rink-sided center of the arena has a large ring of tables with chairs closely set up around the edges and microphones everywhere. Behind those, past the rink divider, is sectioned seating that follows the same alignment as in the middle, and it's already packed out with people. Just looking over them, you can see people in similar career groups in each section, and in front of them in the rink are two very important people from that department or field. As your eyes slide over them, you catch what Cancri told you about before. One of each pair has a glowing tattoo, and one does not. Further back, behind the representatives and those assisting them, are other departments not otherwise represented, like the education head, the head of the arts, as well as leaders of various companies or smaller departments. Notably, there you can pick out Porim, but also Dirk and Roxy. Higher up than that is the enclosed plastic-walled box seating, which is absolutely filled with members of the press. A woman up ahead leads your group through the aisles and out into the rink, directing each of you to your name-assigned seating around the edge of the tables. "Is Mr. Strider not attending, or is he arriving later?" she asks all of you. "He's not coming," Gamzee answers for you. "All right, well, I'll take the chair. Try to even yourselves out so there's not an obvious gap," the woman says, and whisks Dave's chair and name placement away with impressive speed. You all shuffle about so you're even, but that doesn't occupy you for long, and even as you're doing it, you can feel so many eyes on you. When you dare to look up at the room, the place is intimidating. You see faces you know. Cancri, in particular, is over there, but Terezi is in the seats behind the people representing law enforcement. And hey, there's Nepeta walking over to you with Polypa. "Hey, Karkat," Nepeta says with a soft sigh as she sits down next to you. "Hey," you say back quietly. "Is Dave not?" Nepeta asks, looking around you and not seeing Dave anywhere. "He didn't feel up to coming," you explain. Nepeta nods, her expression unhappy and guilty all at once. Around you, there's the slow lowering of volume, and you realize that the big table that you're sitting around now is basically full. Only one or two people who aren't sat, and even they are just pulling their chairs out to do so now. A woman stands up at the head of the table, which should be impossible, as the table arrangement is very even, but nonetheless, when she stands, she absolutely appears to be at the head of it. You've never spoken to her in person, but you know her by her reputation from both Cancri and Terezi. Tizius Entic occupies a very niche position within the ship. She's a trained legislator, but she's based in the governing body of the ship, working very closely on law reform and operating as the de facto highest court of appeal on the vessel. Terezi speaks of her with admiration and studious respect. Cancri always forbade you from making any connections with her, since he wanted to make those connections, or whatever. He always was the one with friends in high places. You're more the type to know someone everywhere. "We have a lot to get through, everyone. I'd appreciate it if we could keep the long-winded, impassioned speeches to a minimum," Tizius says, definitely looking at Cancri there, who bristles. You look at Nepeta, eyebrows raised, at the same moment that she looks at you. You did just see that, right? "We have a lot to sort out, so I'll start from the top. The captain is still under arrest, pending a trial and judgment at a later date to determine whether she is fit for her position or not. But we have a lot of other things to sort out in the meantime. For the sake of ease, I'm declassifying Skaya. We were going to talk about it after the mission from Somnos anyway, so it may as well be now. Telemetry, go," Tizius says, gesturing with her mug. You can't help but notice a glow coming from her hand, too. Follicle doesn't stand up, but she does lean closer to her mic and speak. "I guess I'm explaining Skaya then. It's a planet, the one we're heading to, inhabited with intelligent life," she starts. The reaction around the room splits things pretty evenly between people who were aware of the planet and those who weren't. Another sentient species is huge news. You don't blame people for being excited. That hasn't happened in lifetimes. Tisius groans loudly and shakes her head. We're not doing questions now. Be quiet or I'll have anyone making noise thrown out. Tisius warns you all, and the volume drops, but doesn't fully stop. Anyway, we're going there. Other ships have been too, trying to rescue everyone before they all fucking die. Not easy, since we know what's behind us now and how close it is. Follicle says slowly. What's the prediction for us getting there? Tisius asks. I've got a decent window. How much that can flex is, engineering and balancers. Follicle shrugs. Right, but that window is... Tisius says leadingly. Between 148 days and 176 days. There's a few days in between where it's not good, but if you want to meet the planet at a speed that we can fall into orbit at, then that's the frame. I'm only taking into account the engine here, not them, Follicle says, waving a hand at your group. Right. Aradia, is there any way we can go slower? Tisius asks. Not if you want to live, and I'm gonna say, you're not going to have much time to hang about on Skya either when we get there. I need to look at the numbers from telemetry a little closer, but off the top of my head, I'd say about a week maximum. Any longer, and we're going to go the same way their planet will. Aradia answers simply. You are acutely aware of the fact that there are a shitload of reporters up there, and maybe Aradia shouldn't be talking about this quite so bluntly. Then again, you're in no position to be leveling any criticism there, are you? Engineering. Can we build the proposed ship in that time? I know we had a few extra months travel time and the time around the planet before, so it's a big difference. Tisius asks. Do you want the long answer or the short answer? Enroka, the head of engineering, asks as he leans into his microphone. You note that he doesn't have a glowing tattoo, but the younger man to his side does. Short first, long after, Tisius says simply. No, Enroka says through gritted teeth. And the long? Tisius asks, patient and waiting. We had 9 months before, and that was a real push. That was assuming the ship we'd built wouldn't need to be flight ready yet, just habitable. Listen, we've already been refining the resources, and the construction drones are ready to be biogrammed. That's lined up. We can pull overtime shifts on every engineer we have, pull in all the trained sailors to do what they can, and get what people we can spare from other qualified companies. If we do that, and assume that nothing goes wrong, we can shave time down that way. Enroka tells her. That sounds good. Obviously, we can't have everyone working on it since our ship needs maintenance, but I think we can spare a lot. What else can you do to bring that time frame down? Tisius asks him. Enroka sighs and leans back in his seat a little. From behind him, a few of his fellow engineers lean over and whisper things at him. The original plan had us towing the mostly constructed ship until its own propulsion was fully okay, and we could make sure they knew how to operate the ship. We were going to stay very close in case of any problems. A training wheels situation. But we can do this another way. We can build the ship at a slower rate and instead focus on building modular habitation structures that we fuse to our own airlocks. We can't do all of them, of course, but it'd mean we don't have aliens sleeping on the ground all over the ship. It's also really dangerous. If that connection fails, they all die, and people on this ship would either die or be hurt in the time it takes the ship's automatic failsafes to kick in and make an emergency airlock and repressurize. Enroka explains. But if we did that, could we take the number of carapations that we had committed to before? Tisius presses him. Hey, physically, we could probably take 20 times the number of people we said, but unless you want my opinion on how to put people in crates so you can stack them in storage racks, then I'm out of my line of expertise. You want agriculture and utilities for that. HR too, probably. Enroka snorts. Tisius closes her eyes and tips her head back for a moment, presumably because it's lower effort than throwing her mug at someone who is acting like the press isn't listening to all of this. The Carapations are going to be able to listen back to all of this in the future. You doubt they'll appreciate that remark. Agriculture, what's the situation? Miss Van der Zee, right? Tizius asks when she regains the power of speech. Miss Van der Zee is a pale, blonde-haired human woman in maybe her late 40s, and she also, notably, is not marked. She sighs at Enrilka and leans toward her microphone. Yes, we can't feed 20 times what we were projected, that's for sure, but we're entirely on track to produce what we said we would. We plan to already be harvesting the first stalks weeks before the earliest projected arrival at the planet, so we could build up stable food stores for the Carapacians. Feeding them sooner rather than later isn't much of a strain for us at all. Between our buffer and theirs, we could, at a push, take 50% more people than projected, but that's really our cap. I also think we should talk about adjusting our safety limits based on the current situation and its repercussions, Miss Van der Zee says, and shoots all of the balancers a look. Yeah, we'll get to that. Utilities, where are... Tizius asks, looking around. Here. We can take the number we said and maybe 50% at a push. The extra power shouldn't be much of a problem, but the limit is really water and sanitation. But we're good, the head of utilities says. Fuck, you can't remember their name. That's gonna haunt you unless you look it up. You'll wake up in the middle of the night remembering it otherwise. HR? Tizius says, and you see your boss's boss straighten up in her seat. Dramox Zukrux is not someone you want to displease. You might view your job in human resources as a way to look out for people, solve problems, and help, but you don't think she sees it your way. The look that she gets in her eyes suggests that the whole ship, to her, is a very complicated resource strategy management game, and she intends to min-max it as hard as possible. The problem that you're looking at here is resource allocation, Dramox says smoothly, proving your point. I already took the liberty of evaluating the housing situation of everyone on the ship. 5% of the hives aboard our ship can very easily be vacated and rearranged based on our own housing criteria as present. Furthermore, we can merge another 8% by encouraging partners who live apart to move in together. It would take little work to repurpose all sporting arenas, such as this one, into temporary housing, along with conference rooms and office suites for people who can very reasonably work from home. Those methods alone can enable us to house 40% of the Carapacian population with little trouble. If we go further and encourage those of us who have to work on location to share housing together, we can arrange for them to hive share with people on opposite schedules, sharing a respite block on a time rota for a temporary basis. We can also aid people into sharing hives without a respite block of their own, utilizing a lounge plank or temporary camp bed. I have a long list of strategies that we can employ in turn. At the very leanest cut I can make, we can house the entire proposed population on this ship now as is, though it would certainly be more comfortable to have proper housing, Dramox says with a smile. Oh shit, how's that gonna go for Hal? Solix mutters. What? You whisper. He's moved back in with his dad at the moment because of the Dave thing. Shit, or AA. Solix says under his breath. Yeah, or you and Yanzi. So, to conclude, logistically we are still able to pick up the Carapacians as promised, even if getting them their own ship and housing them is going to be more complicated than before. Okay. Bigger problems then. Polypa and Nepeta, what's the situation with the fleet? Tizius asks. Nepeta leans towards her microphone with an unhappy expression on her face. I know that you're aware of this, but for the sake of everyone else, I'll explain. The arrangement was that very few people were supposed to know about the Void and the Balancers. The whole ship absolutely wasn't meant to, as that's supposed to be dangerous. That's obviously been called into question now, but still. The policy is that if a ship was to all become awake, like we are now, then that ship is cut off from the fleet so that it doesn't spread, so we don't email or message or anything with anyone else. The captain had a duty to report that information was surfacing, and she did. They're waiting to hear from her to see if she contained the situation or not. Even if she had, we likely would have been kept at some kind of distance until things were settled. Nepeta explains. Greedock, Tizius says as she looks to the head of law enforcement. I'm going to take a wild guess, based on the captain's personality and history, that she's not willing to lie to the fleet and say that everything is fine. Absolutely not. Greedock laughs humorlessly. Huh. Terezi was sitting behind him, but she's not there now. When did that happen? Where has she gone off to? Tizius nods slowly, moving her mug as if to swirl the contents. It is a very real possibility that if we make contact with the fleet ourselves and explain the situation, that we will be cut off. Almost certain, actually. Attempting to forge the captain's message will be read as an act of hostility, and if we ever come within range of another ship, we will certainly be treated as pirates and attacked. Getting cut off is the better situation, as I see it, but if anyone else has any thoughts, do let me know, Tizius says. You're expecting people to cut in with comments or answers, and people try, but it's Gamzee who gets there first. Actually, he rumbles, and people look around. I don't see why we have to cut contact. To stop the spread of... Polypa starts. I'm not talking about everyone. Balancers talk to balancers from ship to ship. We pass on what we feel and learn about the void. It's how we could tell it was heading right to Somnos. Can't we still talk to them? We didn't do nothing wrong. Gamzee points out. Mr. Makara has an excellent point, and furthermore, I think it would suit the rest of the fleet for us to keep things as they are in that regard. By which I mean, if the balancers continue communicating, the fleet benefits from our continued contact, and us from them. On top of that, it seems that people are incredibly eager to know what happens if an entire ship knows the truth. Like it or not, we have become a test case for that. That has value to them, Cancri points out. Oh, I like that, Enroka says with a sharp grin. No point studying us if we're dead. And if we need supplies, that's pretty good leverage for us to ask for them, even if they drop them in a crate and we divert to pick it up. A mutually beneficial arrangement, Cancri nods. Unless that biases the experiment, Tizius counters. I can't say about the psych part of it, but this isn't an experiment. It's just observation, Follicle adds. Rose's boss stands up from somewhere a few rows back in the stands and raises her hand. Tizius points at her to prompt her to speak. From a psychological standpoint, it's not an experiment either. At best, it's a case study. And if you're trying to isolate awareness of all of this as a trigger for unusual events, then removing the interference from the happenstance of not having enough washers or something, then it would benefit everyone else to ease our situation to stop the data being so muddied, she says. Oh yeah, washers, that's exactly the fucking problem we have, Enroka mutters, unfortunately a little too close to his microphone, so it gets picked up just fine. If honesty is our best policy anyway, then opening with that bargain is, well, probably the best shot we have. I want to run a vote around the table, and if it passes here, then I'll pass it to the ship as a whole, but I'm not going to flood the ship with polls if we don't agree, Tizius says. I actually have a different... Dramox starts, but Tizius holds up her hand. This first. Yeah, that looks good, Tizius says, looking from Dramox to one of her own subordinates. The subordinate taps a few things on their tablet, and around the table, the little nameplate screens shift on the back to display a line of text and yes and no buttons. Truthfully update the fleet about our ship-wide knowledge of the void and offer information in exchange for continued balancer communication. You glance at the others. Aradia and Gamzee hit yes right away. You've already caused enough problems, and if this sensible idea matches with what Aradia and Gamzee think is smart, then you're going to follow them on this. Vote passes. We'll put it to the ship. Tizius nods, in a clear effort to be democratic and gift the new council with an air of authority by the people. Not that you disapprove or anything, far from it. People being allowed more direct say in how the ship is run is good. You just wonder how things will look 6 months or a year from now. You hope it'll be better than what you had before. If I may, Dramox says, now that the vote is over. Tizius inclines her head to indicate that Dramox, in fact, may.
As you have all said, the possibility of bargaining for needed resources is just that, a possibility. In fact, it's very likely that we may be cut off altogether, or even treated as hostile. With all that on the table, I have to ask the other departments here two uncomfortable questions. Firstly, how hard is it going to be to survive on our own? How many weak points do each of your departments have, where if something fails, everything fails? She asks, looking at everyone in turn.
If I may start, Miss Vanderzee says before anyone else can speak up. In agriculture, we make sure to vary our crops, our meat synthesization, our livestock, and the like to prevent any disaster. Farms are kept apart from each other. Any workers must go through decontamination before entering and exiting. We make sure not to produce genetically identical monocultures, so we're able to resist disease easily. We have backup plans on backup plans. If one crop is to fail somewhere, we are fully able to compensate or replace it. The one thing that can stop food production is not having the workforce to run it, and if that has become the problem, then there are bigger issues at hand.
And on the topic of your meat synthesization, how technical are these machines? How hard is it to come by the parts? How much do we rely on other ships?
Dramox asks. Everything we use is manufactured here by engineering, and even in the event that everything broke at the same time, we have plans and recipes for other protein sources. Lentils, beans, we have it covered. There is no point in instigating panic over this, Miss Vanderzee says with cool composure on her face, but a sharp and icy look in her blue eyes.
I would also caution against starting panic,
Tizius says, in a tone so calm it could be observational, rather than the threat that you're sure it is.
I am merely asking questions. Was the whole point of this not that we deserve to know the truth?
Dramox asks. Across the room, you see Cancre's hand move over his tablet as an expression just faintly ghosts his features. Most people probably wouldn't spot it, but you knew Cancre back when you and he lived together and would both smash at your keyboards with furious speed because someone was wrong on the internet. You know that expression that preceded 1,000 self-important teenage, well, actually moments. Only now it's faintly there, restrained, and seemingly making notes of all things. This is something you want to watch for sure.
Enroka,
Dramox starts.
We manufacture everything we need ourselves. We recycle everything we can, so nothing is wasted. We're better at making some things than other ships are, so whenever we met up before, we'd trade, but there's no need to do that. If we're on our own, we're on our own. At most, it's going to be a pain in the ass for planning what gets made when, so unless you're offering to save me the trouble of making spreadsheets, there's nothing to talk about. I'm sure the same goes for you too in utilities, right, Monsieur?
Enroka asks, looking over at the head of utilities. Pretty much. Recycling and reclamation gets us pretty much everything we need in terms of chemicals. We have backup systems for getting power. There's solar cells on the outside of the ship. All the parts we need are made here. Sure, it's nice to get fresh supplies from new planets, but because we can't count on planets that we pass having what we need, we don't tend to rely on that for anything. Monsieur nods.
And the reactor. If something was to go wrong with the uranium, or whatever it is that you use, how long could we last? I doubt every planet we pass has easily accessible radioactive material. If we can't call the fleet for help, what then? Furthermore, if this precarious kind of position, should we really be giving away such resources to other people? Surely that's the kind of reactor we promised them,
Dramox asks. Solix's claws are digging points into the table, and you can see the battery glowing on his middle finger. He's holding his breath and almost vibrating with tension. You know where he fears this heading. You're afraid of it too. Tizius opens her mouth, but Cancre gets there first.
For the sake of clarity here, Dramox, am I correct in surmising that your concern is that without the potential assistant of the fleet, and I do say potential because even as part of the fleet, there's no certainty that we could get help if something was to go terribly wrong. That's not new. But without being part of the fleet, it would be irresponsible to risk the lives of the people already part of this ship in order to aid an entire ship's worth of alien strangers to us. That you feel our obligation to preserve ourselves outweighs the obligation to help others, a sort of a sinking lifeboat rescues no one kind of situation. Is that correct? Cancri asks Dramox quickly. Dizzyus closes her mouth and hides a slow smile with her mug. Precisely. I'm not saying this out of malice, but practicality. Additionally, adding a whole new species at such a stressful time could brew resentment and discord between us and them, with us helping at great inconvenience and risk to ourselves, and them simply taking. Dramox adds, and Cancri nods and writes on his tablet for a moment. Please excuse my lack of knowledge here, Ms. Vanderzee. I have a vague piece of trivia in the back of my mind, and I would really appreciate it if you could tell me if I'm right or not here. It is relevant, Dramox, I promise. Cancri asks. Of course, ask away, Ms. Vanderzee says with the polite smile of someone eager to hand Cancri some ammo against Dramox. The meat synthesization process. We do that instead of rearing meat animals because of efficiency, primarily, though there's an ethical point to be made as well. Cancri starts. Indeed? She nods. Wasn't that a human invention? Pre-apocalyptic troll ships had livestock, didn't they? Cancri asks. Correct. It was hugely inefficient and a massive vector for disease. Additionally, it was only offered to the higher officers, and those lower down typically had a poorer diet. Humans, on the other hand, don't require meat as much as trolls do, and a great number on Earth chose not to eat it anyway, and a lot of them ate substitutes. By the time we met, they were able to use their scientific advances in that field, and our own tech, to make perfect imitations at the cellular level. A great deal of the advancements in efficient farming was human-driven too, and their native plants are now a staple of our diet. Having crops from Earth and Alternia varies our fields enough that plant-damaging pests and disease don't spread nearly as easily as they otherwise might. Ms. Vanderzee answers brightly. I thought that was the case. And guess you're in Roka. Obviously, trolls are fantastic builders, given that we have construction drones, and we were building spaceships long before the humans were. We all know that. But our reactor, the one that freed Goldbloods from their horrific torture and literal objectification, that was a human invention, correct? Cancri says, looking at them both. Yeah, along with countless introductions of safety equipment and procedures that keep our workers safe. The old regime didn't care. Gessier nods, waving his faintly glowing hand as he talks. And alternative power sources, reclaiming heat as energy in the ship, and turning it into power instead of venting it. And even beyond that, we have human-run companies like, the Striders over there. Their tech is obviously compatible with ours, but a lot of the principles used come from human engineering. Enroka says, waving a hand at the stands behind you. Wonderful. Then, Cancri begins. I see your point, Dramox says sharply. I don't believe that you do. As such, I am going to elaborate. We are in a precarious position. That is true. But a lot of it is just as precarious as before, and you are phrasing it in a way that instills panic. I would never question whether this is a sincere fear on your side, or whether you are distressing people as a rhetorical device to get a certain outcome. That aside, we are unquestionably in a better position as trolls for meeting and working with humans, and the same goes the other way. Even if your assertion that we do not have a moral obligation to aid a fellow sentient species when it is presented to us is correct, it still benefits us to do so. The humans were barely spacefaring when they discovered the void, and yet here we are, alive thanks to humans. To dismiss the Carapacians because they are not spacefaring yet, to assume that linear progress is the same across species, is absurd. We don't know how much they could help us in return for us saving them. You do not know what medicine, what technology, what science they have that we haven't even thought about yet that could be in their possession. Beyond that, we don't know what culture, what art, what unique elements of their society could save us just as much as the humans saved the Goldbloods. I shouldn't even need to make this argument. We promised to help, and we should. We ought to help, and so we must. But if you are determined to see humans or any other species as mere resources, as per your job description, then I hope I have impressed upon you that your assessment of said resources is upsettingly incompetent. Cancri says, in a smooth, clipped, and precise flow of words.
For all the effect it had, he may as well have gone over to her, lifted her over his head, and then snapped her posture pole in half over his knee. But this was way cooler to watch.
I was just asking questions. I wasn't suggesting that I actually...
Dremox tries.
The devil has enough advocates, Dremox. If you have a point to make, please do.
Cancri invites her, in the same way that someone who has just punched someone in the face might yell, "And stay down!" as helpful advice. There is a pause, in which you have to restrain yourself from cheering or applauding. Dremox looks mad as hell, but she's staying silent. She looks up at Tizius, who is watching silently. Tizius maintains unblinking eye contact and drinks, leaving several long, empty seconds before she stops.
You look like you still had something to say there, Dremox. Did you?
Tizius asks innocently.
No,
Dremox says quietly.
Fantastic. We have a few more things on our list. I want to hear from law enforcement departments about the status of the investigations with the captain and the people she had arrested. Also, plans for how to explain the laws to the Carapacians. The Department of Health as well. I have questions about the void and how it affects people. And, the balancers. We'll do you 5-4 first.
Tizius says, looking you over.
Dave wasn't able to come, but we can answer pretty much everything else,
Aradia assures her.
Pity. Please, would you give us an update about the situation with the void, and also all of you? I understand Mr. Captor and Mr. Vantus are new to the job, as it were.
Tizius says, though surely she already knew that.
Yes, so we got a good distance away from the void, but thanks to the jump, but it is still heading directly for us as best as we can tell. I personally have a suspicion that it's heading to Skya just as we are. Obviously the void was going to get the planet anyway, but this part of it seems to be aiming that way. I hope, at least, that once we've left the planet behind, we'll be able to get more distance. The ship seems reasonably balanced as is, but we're going to keep a very close watch on it. Karkat and Solix are still new, and Dave has agreed to do a lot of their training, but I'll help with that as well, and me and Gamzee will take up most of the balancing to even out the workload.
Aradia explains.
You said you already got some balancing out of Solix on planet, though.
Gamzee adds.
Right, we did. Solix is a little ahead there. I'm not fully sure how long it'll take to teach them. We got most of our theory when we were younger, and we became familiar with the balance from being around our predecessors doing it. So when it came time for us to step up and do the work, we'd had a lot of foundation already. We all took to it really quickly. Solix and Karkat are starting cold, so it's hard to make a prediction on timescale,
Aradia admits. Tizius makes a face that either suggests that she's not really happy about that, or perhaps that she's got something stuck in her back teeth. It's hard to tell.
All right. Keep us updated then.
She nods finally. Actually, Solix interrupts, leaning to his mic suddenly. Tizius gives him a look that suggests that this had better be good. I had something else to add since I'm part of all this now. I know a lot of stuff has come out about us now, Solix says. That's a very passive, vague way of saying the thing you did. So, I know a lot of things about us are common knowledge now, and people are curious or scared or whatever. Fine. It's weird going on social media and seeing my name on the side with all the trending tags, but I'm fine with not looking at that. But it's not cool or okay for people to be reposting images or video from anything that came out, or speculating about why any of us are balancers, Solix says sharply.
Yeah, I'm in a mind to agree with Solix. Really didn't fucking appreciate seeing my ancestors' murder trial online again,
Gamzee growls. Or Matuna being kidnapped, Solix hisses in agreement.
I just looked now. Filtering through video posts, there's video of both of those events, and also from the files about Dave,
Aradia comments, her palm husk in her hand.
That's...
Tizius tries to say, but Aradia leans in really close to her own microphone and speaks, her lips so close they almost brush it.
I am the only light balancer on the ship that knows what I'm doing. Without me, you have 2 trainees that know nothing. Without me, you're doomed. If I find anyone posting this, I'm going to make you a ghost and no one will stop me because I'm keeping the ship alive.
Aradia says, her voice flat and entirely honest. She sits back in her seat and smiles. It is somehow more unsettling than Gamzee's smile, which is impressive considering that Gamzee's smile is very serial killer-like right now, and he's leaking voodoo strongly enough to make Solix lean well away from him. I'll see what I can do. Obviously, that's not an acceptable thing to post online. Certainly, we can make some content guidelines, Tizius says slowly.
I think that would be best for everyone,
Aradia chirps, both menacing and sweet. You observe the staring contest between Aradia and Tizius. Tizius is clearly a legal monster, smart, cunning, and driven to an extent that makes Cancrate... Well, you'd maybe need to ask him about that. The point is, Tizius isn't easily intimidated. On the other hand, Aradia's cheerful malevolence is utterly terrifying, especially when paired with the not at all subtle threat of, what are you gonna do about it? Y'all need me to live. So, it's a real thing to see. We all appreciate the service that the Balancers perform. I also wouldn't want to overstep your time, since you obviously have training and recovery that you should be doing. I don't think we require you for the rest of this, Tizius says carefully.
Wonderful,
Aradia beams. The four of you aren't exactly escorted out. It's more that everything between your group and the doors are opened, cleared, or hastily parted with the very clear hint that they'd like you to leave. As much as you enjoyed watching Cancrete devastate people, you're never eager to stay in meetings that you don't have to be in, and it seems like the rest of your group feel the same way. Or maybe Gamzee and Aradia just know how to make a sinister exit. Or, as Solix would point out, it could be both.
Oh, that was kind of entirely fucking terrifying, Aradia,
you say as soon as the doors are shut behind you.
Uh-huh,
Solix says in a weird voice. Have you even seen the heinous fuckery that people are spewing online? They ought to know that we're not going to tolerate that disrespectful shit. Gamzee growls.
I haven't looked, I'll be honest,
you admit. You're feeling a little glad about that, actually.
It's terrible, but now they know that I'm willing to track them down and confiscate their bones, and no one's going to stop me,
Aradia says cheerily. It's not like people go around using their full names online most of the time, so that'd be difficult, you point out.
I know a guy who'll tell me what I need to know,
Aradia declares and claps her hand on Solix's shoulder. Solix has his hand over his mouth, and his face is bright mustard color, and the memory occurs to you that he always did appreciate Aradia's brief forays into being terrifying. God, you're pretty sure he would hand over any information she wanted right now. I am not used to this being inappropriate, Solix manages to croak out.
But you would help me though, wouldn't you?
Aradia asks with that grin on. Solix looks like he's well aware that they're broken up and this isn't happening, but yet you still think he'd give her the codes to the reactor if he had them. You know, Gamzee says to you quietly, people think she doesn't play any instruments, she just sings. But that ain't true. She's playing him just like a fiddle.
Hey,
Solix protests, but Gamzee just grins at him.
He's not wrong,
you point out, and Solix scowls at you now. On the subject of not being wrong about shit, I wanted to say about you bringing all that up back there, Solix, Gamzee says, his tone suddenly serious. The color fades a little from Solix's face, and he straightens up a little under Gamzee's stare, as if being an inch taller helps compared to Gamzee. What about it? Solix asks, staring back at him with his eyes glowing and unblinking. Thanks, Gamzee says. Oh, Solix says quietly, clearly not expecting that. I saw all that shit on there, but I couldn't do shit about it, and I didn't want to... Gamzee shrugs one shoulder a little helplessly. Here you are thinking one way about Solix still having some kind of romantic attachment or attraction to Aradia, and now here you are feeling pity for Gamzee again. Yeah, well, I was on my way to see the Striders about the virus, and I figured I'd go on my palm husks so I didn't have to see people looking at me, and then I got smacked in the face with the security footage of Matuna being dragged away, and Solix breathes in sharply and shakes his head. I looked around and saw shit about not just my dance sister, but yours, and the whole trial. Dave's shit just spread everywhere. If people know about us, they can at least not talk that shit about us or show that stuff right where we can see. Solix hisses. Yeah, well, I'm used to not so many people knowing and being part of a group that smacked the sense into someone who tried to bring any of that up. All this is bigger and newer, and it ain't like I'm used to talking to the whole ship. But, yeah, thanks. Gamzee nods. I know we're not friends or anything, but even if it had only been your stuff they'd been talking about, I would have said something. That shit's not okay, Solix says seriously. Gamzee inclines his head ever so slightly to Solix, a silent gesture of gratitude and respect. It's easily the nicest you've seen them be to each other in a long time. They can do strained, polite indifference if you insist on putting them together, but that was actually genuine. Solix returns the gesture with no squabbling or insults between them at all. Anyway, I'm out. 6? Gamzee directs that last part to Aradia.
6 sounds good.
Aradia agrees brightly. Gamzee nods and then, with a wave, leaves.
I think I'm going to go to the sailor physio people because I am full of tension and messed up muscles from Somnos' cold weather and all the stress,
Aradia says. That's the thing we have? Solix asks.
That's the thing we have. You should try it, but not now because I'm going now. Bye,
Aradia says and sticks her tongue out at Solix before darting off, as if he's going to try to beat her to it. That leaves you and Solix alone then. Not a word, Solix warns you, obviously meaning that whole thing back there with Aradia. You smile meanly and silently at him. You're the worst, Solix insists. I didn't say anything, you say innocently and with offense. I hate you. Come home with me, Solix asks. You just want me to come over so I'll be there when dinner time rolls around and you can get Korean food after all, you accuse him. Justified? Solix blinks at you behind his bicolored glasses, waiting patiently and not denying anything you said at all. Justified! Is Dave even going to want me there? You ask. He's not there. He's with TZ, remember? He says, pushing his glasses up from where they've slid down his sniff nose slightly. You think they might have got bent a little, and you have to resist the impulse to check and fix them for him. Typically, when people leave their hives to go places, they eventually return, you say slowly, like he's exceptionally stupid. And, Solix says in the same tone back to you, if Dave wants you to leave when he gets there, he can say that. Yeah, but, you try. It's my hive too, Solix points out. I hate you. You're the worst friend, you accuse him. Solix hums, unimpressed and unconvinced. I didn't mean that, you add. Solix repeats, but this time there's a smile pulling at his lips. You roll your eyes at him. He's impossible. I miss you. I've never not been around you for that long, and since I got back, it's been one thing blowing up in our faces after another, Solix says. Well, there goes your willpower! You nod dumbly, and Solix beams. Just like that, the two of you are already heading back to his hive. There's not an awful lot of talking on the way there, and that's mainly because you're both acutely aware of people looking at you wherever you go. Normally, you're not a socially anxious person. You don't worry much about people everywhere judging everything you say because you know that you're nobody and who gives a shit about what you say. Except, now you're not a nobody and anything you say could very well wind up on the internet. Honestly, getting back into a hive that may or may not have a Dave in it who may or may not rightfully hate you still is a relief. You look around anxiously, but you don't see Dave or Beck. And you're not going to see me for a second, because I'm going to take break now,
Could there have been a better segue? I don't know. I sure did try. I'll be back in a few. I'm what they call back. Hey, girl. Hey, girl. You would ever doubt me? With Adventure Time? Oh, ye of little faith. Well, let's get back to it. Door noises? Door noises? Yippee! Okay. Settling back in. Giving me a moment. I'm giving me a moment? Wow, thanks, me. Thank you so much for this moment. One. Okay. Back to it. Dave? Hal? Solix shouts and gets nothing back. Not that I thought either of them would be here. Solix shrugs. Why wouldn't Hal be here? I thought he was mostly fine now. Wait, no, you said earlier he moved in with Mr. Egbert again because of the Dave thing. You say with a frown. Well, that, and he did have a concussion from being blown up, and then we both got blown up again, which didn't help, so Solix starts. I'm sorry, you what? You demand. Did I guess I didn't tell you? I thought I said that we figured out why Hal's machine blew up, that it was code the Striders tacked onto yours, that he starts. Made it so ghosts and tech death screwed with it. You told me that before Dave got to Aradia's, but you didn't mention an explosion! You insist. Huh. Okay. Solix nods and presses the button to open the door to his respite block. His bed is unmade, and his torn desk chair is on it. There's a shard of something through one of his computer screens and a huge scorch mark on his desk. Yeah, it makes stuff blow up. We're fine, though. Psionics beats explosions in that very expanded game of rock, paper, scissors. I'm sure it didn't help his head, but he'd decided to stay with his dad and keep out of Dave's way before that. He seemed pretty aware that Dave would be pissed at him, so he wanted to give him space. Hal apologized, and it went pretty well, all things considered. Solix shrugs. Wow, fuck. Okay. Tell me you didn't sleep on debris-covered sheets all last night. You ask him despairingly as you eye the bits of broken plastic and glass glinting here and there in the light on his desk. I didn't, Solix says evasively, and you squint up at him. He's not making eye contact with you right now. A lot of people can't tell with him, but you can. Right now, he's definitely looking off to the side, his face the picture of badly feigned innocence. He wouldn't be this evasive if the answer had been that he crashed in Hal's bed instead, since Hal wasn't around. You slept with Dave, you say slowly, staring at him. It wasn't like that. Only literally, not euphemistically, okay? He asked me, and I'm not going into why because that's his business. It's not like we've not slept in the same bed before. It happened a couple of times on Somnos. Entirely PG rated. Well, except for the shit that Dave always says, because that's Dave. We practically had Lucis chaperone supervision, seeing as Beck was right there, and he basically is a Lucis. And as a side note, are we sure that thing is a regular bark beast? Solix says in a rush. Oh, yeah, that might have been platonic and innocent on Dave's part. That you'll buy, even with the things Dave can just say that scandalize normal people. You're entirely willing to bet that last night was a night of morally conflicted sexual frustration for Solix alone, with Dave entirely unaware of it. Still, you're not here to rub salt into that wound. My theory for Beck is that, remember when we were in school and we had to do comparative Earth and Alternian culture? One of the things we covered was how animals were treated on Earth compared to animals on Alternia, and also Lucii on Alternia? You ask. I remember that I had to write an essay about pets that I definitely didn't do half of right before the class I had to hand it in for. Solix lies. Badly. The fact that you did well in school despite your terrible work ethic is offensive to everything right in the universe. But yes, that class. We had to watch bits of that movie, All Dogs Go to Heaven, and a bunch of other pet movie clips to go over the idea of how humans viewed pet animals as having a soul in the same way they do, or close enough. Well, the idea of a pet heaven implies the existence of a pet god who rules that realm. My theory is that Beck is the mortal incarnation of Dog God. Some superpowered canine messiah walking among mortals for reasons known only to him, but may or may not have to do with getting his belly scratched and an insane amount of treats. You explain. That's as plausible as any other theory, I guess. Solix says thoughtfully, and drops onto the lounge plank with a worn-out sigh. Are you sure that Dave will be okay with me here? I know it's your hive too, but still. You ask uneasily, not yet sitting down even as you walk around the lounge plank so you could sit next to him. Dave said he was okay with teaching you. He didn't seem unreasonably angry at having to be near you, and it's my hive too. I'm not going to assume he can't handle it. If he has a problem with you being here, then he'll say so when he gets here. Solix says, without even lifting his head up or opening his eyes to look at you. Uh-huh. Solix has so much faith about Dave's resilience and what will and won't actually hurt him, not to mention confidence that Dave would tell him if things weren't okay. This is the least subtle you've ever seen Solix's pitch feelings for Dave. For his sake, you sure hope that Dave is still as dumb about quadrants as he was when you were teenagers. You kinda doubt it, though. Dave might not be as tuned into troll romance as you, but he's far from stupid. Despite all the dumb shit he does, you mean. As an act of benevolence, you're going to let all that slide and sit down with Solix instead. As you do, Solix opens his eyes and turns a little to look at you. Hey, I know I mentioned it earlier, but I'm sorry about you and Gamzee, he says gently. Yeah, me too. It was mutual, at least, so it could be worse. It still sucks, though, you admit. I bet. It's not like I thought that whole thing was exactly good for you. Early on, maybe, but not for a long time. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean I'm throwing a parade about you two breaking up. There's a lot of the whole breaking up thing going around right now, so I think pretty much everyone can sympathize. Solix tells you, his tone earnest and quiet, like it's just for you. I know, it sucks. I wish I could still help him. I still pity him, kind of. I still care about him, but the places that he's hurt still, he clearly doesn't want me near. Not to mention, I obviously don't trust him as much as I should. He told me to stay put, and I crawled through the ship to get to you instead of trusting that he'd handle things. I didn't tell him what we'd found, or about Reader, or anything. You sigh. Kinda like me and AA, I guess. Just ran past its expiration date. Solix says thoughtfully. Yeah, you say that, but I saw your face earlier. You grin at him. God, don't! I need to get into the code of my brain and remove AA's admin permissions to all the bits of my think sponge that have anything to do with paling. Solix groans, his face in his hands. Good luck with that! You laugh at him. Solix kicks you, and as always it devolves into petty squabbling that eventually ends with the pair of you slumped together on the sofa, heckling the TV and ordering food on your palm husk. Your cheek is squished to his shoulder, and his head rests gently on the top of yours. Your hand is on the lounge plank, with the back of your loosely curled fingers brushing the side of his leg ever so slightly. When your shuttle disappeared, we all thought you were dead. you say, in the direction of the TV instead of to him. You still hear the breath leave him, like he literally got punched in the gut instead of just emotionally. I felt so guilty for not talking you out of it, and I thought you were dead, and then you weren't. I'm really grateful that you're here, that you're okay. Ghost fuckery aside, I mean, you say, your voice shaky. He's your best friend. You thought you lost him. Solix turns on the lounge plank so he can smother you in an uncoordinated hug, his face smushed into your cheek and his glasses slightly biting into your skin. I'm sorry, he whispers. It wasn't your fault, you point out. I know, but I'm still... Fuck. I've never been away from you for that long, and all that happened. Solix sniffs. You came back, though, you say softly, your hand on his side. You never stopped pitying him, and even if falling into another quadrant right now would be a terrible idea so soon after Gamzee, it's not like you can deny that there's pale feelings there. There's a line, though, and so far you're not over it. Solix laughs into your shoulder, a little dry and humorless, but still. Like I'd not come back. Even if I died, I would. I'd haunt your dumbass, he tells you, his voice a little thick, like maybe he's trying not to cry. I already have a ghost, you point out. I'd be your second ghost, Solix says instantly. You smack yourself in the forehead for not seeing that one coming, and since you're there, you bonk Solix on the top of the head for subjecting you to that dumb joke as well. The door chimes, making you both spring apart in alarm. Shit, Dave! You hiss in a panic. I'll talk to... Wait, fuck, we're stupid. It's food. Dave doesn't ring his own front door. He lives here, Solix says in dismay and hurries to the door to accept the food. It is food, not Dave, which is something of a relief both for your anxious blood pusher and your hungry digestion sac. Solix returns from the door, floating an inordinate amount of food in the air as he moves to sit down again. That is way too much food, you tell him. You're a coward, and I'm disappointed, Solix says, without a shred of sincerity. He sits down, and your conversation about near-death experiences, your relationship, and your now-ended relationship with Gamzee fade out in favor of talking about the food and stealing things from each other's dishes. After a while, though, you both settle into eating, or at least you do. Solix doesn't look all that settled at all. So, I might have had another reason for asking you to come over for dinner, Solix says slowly, his eyes on his food. Aside from making it so you could get the food you wanted? You ask him sarcastically. That's a given. I need to tell you something, but you have to swear to keep it to yourself. I mean it. I can't tell you all of it, even, but I need to tell you some part of it, or I'm gonna go nuts, Solix says, his voice firm and his stare unwavering. Is this a big and important piece of information about the world, like the balance in the void, or is this personal? You ask warily. Personal. Super fucking personal, Solix answers you. I'm listening, you say, around a mouthful of rice and barbecued synthetic beef. Keep it to yourself, right? Promise? He asks you, and you give him a look that communicates that you've never, ever blabbed his personal business before in the entire history of your friendship, so the question doesn't even dignify an answer. I told you already about Dave, Solix starts. You nod. He has told you a lot of things about Dave. And my feelings for him, those ones, the Dave feelings, he mumbles, looking away for a moment. Are you just going to keep extending that sentence so you can put off whatever you're going to say? You ask him dryly. No, I'm going to bite off all of your recognizable facial features so no one can identify your body, Solix retorts. You don't have room to finish all of your dinner, let alone a slip into cannibalism, you point out, gesturing to the expansive set menu on the coffee table that's still there. Ugh, I know. Look, we talked about my feelings for Dave. Solix says, steering the conversation back on track. You mean the crush that might crush you under the weight of it because it's such a massive amount of feelings in one place? Yeah, I remember. You tell him cheerily. You're the worst. Anyway, things sort of... Solix hesitates and falls silent, chewing on his lip. You wait, genuinely curious as he seems to think about what to say. He said about it to Jade, so it's not like you're just anyone, so I could... Yeah. Solix mumbles to himself. Dave? What about him? Come on. You remind him. Yeah, well, there's a thing about the whole having feelings for Dave thing, Solix says. Go on. You press him again. This had better be good. Solix sighs and slumps down a little more on the lounge plank before speaking. Who knew that spending basically all my time with him in a really intense situation was going to amplify that? And on top of Jade breaking up with him, so he's now single and also emotionally... I don't know. He was even asking me how I dealt with the Aradia thing, because seeing me as someone capable enough to be worth emulating definitely isn't going to affect how pitch I am for him, Solix says, dragging his hands through his hair with a groan. You suck in a breath through clenched teeth. Ouch, that's rough. His feelings are clearly so much stronger now, and it's not going to get better, seeing as they live together still, and now you're all having to do this big life-or-death job. Oh, Solix, you whisper. Yeah, well, see, that's where I was at with this whole thing. Very, oh well, you're gonna die of feelings about it. And remember, you're not talking about this, and also I'm definitely not giving you more detail because it's not my detail to give, Solix says hastily. I have absolutely no idea where this is going, and I swear if you don't tell me something soon, I'm skewering your spleen with my chopsticks. You threaten him. That's not... I don't even know where my spleen is, Solix says, looking down at his middle as if that's going to help. Me neither, but I'm willing to keep going until I get it right. You snap and jab at him with your chopsticks for good measure. I'm ignoring your threat of violence, Solix sighs. Foolish, you retort. Anyway, so there I was, stuck on an ice planet that was a non-zero amount of spooky, drowning in feelings and repair work. Dave was there, having the gall to go about looking like he does. Then, for reasons I'm not going into, he wasn't doing so hot, and he hadn't been for a while, so I figured he was just stuck on something, you know? I thought all he needed was a push to get over some idea or whatever that was rattling around in his head, and he could deal with the rest himself once he got the momentum up. Solix explains. Spades! You fake cough, and Solix glares at you. It's not your fault Solix's whole deal is pitch as fuck. He thinks Dave is so strong and formidable as a rival that if he is having trouble, then all he needs is a little help out of respect, and then soon he'll be back stronger than ever. It's classic Black Rom, and from the look that Solix is giving you, he knows it too. He's just mad that you're pointing it out. As I was saying, Solix goes on loudly. Do! You chirp delightedly. He flips you off. I went up there to our shared respite block on the base to talk to him. And we did talk, I mean. Not giving details on that, but... Solix pauses. He looks at the ceiling and then finally back at you. We kissed, he says simply. What? You demand, scrambling forward so fast that Solix has to catch your food before you drop it all over the lounge plank and floor. You kissed Dave? You demand. I'm not sure I could really say who started it, but it happened. We kissed, Solix tells you. You stare at him, open-mouthed in shock. How? How the hell did this happen? Dave! You kissed Dave! You and Dave kissed! Dave, the straightest human we know! When? What? How? You ask in utter shock. Yeah, well, Actually, I probably shouldn't say that. All I'm going to say about that is... You've seen what bro is like, and trust me, it's way worse when you can understand what he's saying. The guy is bigoted as fuck, so it's not like it would have been easy for Dave to... Solix starts. To act like he was anything but straight before. Fuck. That is horrific. So, wait, you two kissed. What's going on with that now? You ask. Solix leans back again, his face troubled. Obviously, that whole situation was a lot, and it wasn't like it had been long since Jade broke up with him. On top of that, we were still on a mission, and things were going on all the time. The idea had been that we'd wait until we got back to the ship and everything was chill, and then we could take it from there and figure out what was going on. Solix says, giving you a sidelong look. Oops, you whisper. Wow, oops, he says. Unintended side effects of revolution may include anarchy, social chaos, and bulge blocking your best friend, Solix says, throwing his hands up in the air. I like how you listed those from least to most serious, you say, and he psionically zaps you for that, which is fair. Hey, I'm sorry, you apologize. Ugh, don't. My point is that I don't know what to do now. Obviously, things are still chaotic now, and Dave is obviously in no place to be leaping into anything right away. But on the other hand, I'm going to pine myself into a fucking forest at this, right? And I know it wasn't a passing thing because I have eyes, and I can see what he's like around me. I don't want to hold off so long that he thinks I don't think he's strong enough to hate anymore. I also definitely don't want to be like, hey, sorry about all the trauma. Maybe the solution to your problems are in my pants. Go check! I don't know what to do. Solix's transition from overacted ranting to genuine heartbreak is enough to make your own pump biscuit ache with sympathy. I'm not gonna ask questions, and I'm not going to speculate about Dave's sexuality here or any of that. That's clearly none of my business, but this whole situation sucks for both of you, and I'm really sorry. You tell him gently. I know. I just really feel like we'd be great for each other. Obviously, we're friends now, and I'm not throwing that out, but I could really properly have his back, you know? Properly pitched, getting to see how good he can be, how good I can be. Solix sighs deeply. Oh, he has got it so bad. He wasn't kidding about how much his feelings have escalated. You suppose it's no surprise. Solix is usually pretty all or nothing about things, and it's not like Dave is a hard person to have feelings for. You know that firsthand. On top of all that, the pair of them went through a hugely stressful series of events together, and that's pretty notorious for escalating things. All that emotional intensity goes somewhere, after all. Alright, advice or sympathy? You ask. Both? Solix says, helpfully. Why do you even ask? My advice would be to pick a time when things aren't constantly falling apart, if you can find one. Talk to him. Let him know that you're not trying to rush anything, but also you're still interested. So much of his life just got blown up in his face thanks to me. That's a lot to go through. I know Dave used to pretend to not understand romance shit just to irritate me, but a lot of humans don't grasp quadrants entirely right. I say, as someone who is also terrible at quadrants. The point is, I'd hate for him to think that what you said, that all of this has taken him down and the hate isn't there for you anymore. Check in with him. Let him know how things stand. Open and honest communication is always the best way. You tell him. But emotional honesty is hard and it sucks. Solix whines. Suck it up. Don't be a whiny little wiggler about it. You snap and smack him in the shoulder. Hey, what's the sympathy with my advice, huh? Solix demands. It's crushed under the weight of my disbelief that you somehow managed to get Dave to kiss you after showing zero interest in any guy at all. You tell him. You say that, but... Solix falters. Oh, are we having the gender talk? You ask in surprise. No gender talk. I was going to say that you would think that, but, what I was going to say was, how do you know that I'm just not so amazing that I break everyone's previously held ideas about romance? Solix says, definitely veering away from saying something else, though you're not sure what. I'd say you're full of shit, you say flatly. No, see, we have Dave, right? And also you. Solix explains. What about me? You didn't break anything. you point out. Ah, but your whole idea about quadrants is a mess. Has been, for as long as you can remember. Solix says. Go on, you say, as a dare to the especially stupid. And how long have you known me? Solix asks innocently. For as long as I can remember, you say through gritted teeth. See? Clearly the captor effect. Solix snickers, his grin so wide it almost looks like it hurts. My ancestor, you start. Knew mine. It's an inherited thing. Clearly Sai had the same thing. Not just gamers, but we have game. Solix says, with an entirely over-the-top amount of ego that you know he doesn't sincerely believe. All the same, though. Where are my chopsticks? I think I dropped them, and now I need to stab you. You say, looking around for them. All right. Solix says hastily, catching hold of your wrist as you get your chopsticks in hand. I will pass on the maiming for now, if you promise that you'll talk to Dave about this. You offer, and make a little pincer motion towards him with the chopsticks, just to make your point clear. Solix doesn't say anything right away, which kind of throws off the back-and-forth pattern of your friendly, antagonistic conversation. He's not even looking at you, or not looking you in the eye anyway. His gaze is lowered to his hand on your wrist. Is that something you're okay with? He asks, his voice soft. What? You start to ask, but as he looks up from your wrist, you catch his expression and the meaning clicks. Because of us? You ask, slowly, warily. You're single, he's single. You don't talk much about your mutual feelings because they're not exactly new, but you're both well aware that they've been there for more than a decade, and now there is theoretically something you could do about it. If I go talk to Dave about this and he actually wants to be a thing, then we're gonna be locked out of this again. It's not like I'm complaining. You're my best friend. I love you, even when you're a horrible little monster trying to stab me with chopsticks. But I'm not going to just not bring this up. Solix points out. You deserve the stabbings you get, you say, your voice a little too weak for the words you're saying. Obviously, Solix says, with a shake of his head like that's just a given. You lower your hands to your legs, making sure you're not rubbing your chopsticks all over your clothes or the lounge plank since you're at it. Look, you obviously have really strong feelings for Dave. You start. I have really strong feelings for you. I pity you, Solix says emphatically. I know. I pity you too, but you and Dave, if that's something that can work, you should go for it. I want you to be happy more than anything else, and fuck knows Dave could use something going well in his life right now. I believe you when you say that you could be good for each other. You insist. Right, but what about us? I know it's not a thing we talk about, but neither of us are dating anyone right now, so we can't just pretend it's not a thing and only focus on Dave and me as a possibility. He argues back. Me and Gamzee broke up yesterday. I'm not going to... You start. Oh my god. I didn't say that I need you to leap into my arms this very second. That Gamzee was right and I was only waiting for a slightest second of a chance before launching myself at your face, ready to drag you into the palest of piles. I didn't say that. Solix protests angrily. I didn't say you did! You argue back. It sounded like you were saying that. Solix says back just as sharply. I'm not... Ugh. Okay, let me actually talk, you say as you pinch the bridge of your nose between your fingers and try to take a calming breath. What I was saying was that I'm still really fresh from losing Gamzee. I don't know who I am without him just yet. It's all still really raw. I wasn't implying that you were trying to be tacky and whisk me off into some quadrant immediately. Just that I don't know how long I'll feel like this. Obviously, I still have feelings for you, but it's not like I have any right to tell you what to do here. I didn't say you had a right to do that. I wanted to know what you wanted, since it'd be pretty shitty to just ignore everything between us and focus on Dave instead. Not to mention that I'm certain that if I even try to ask Dave if he wants to be a thing, he's going to ask about you and me, and if I stand there and say I didn't think to ask, I'm gonna look like an asshole, which is why I'm asking, because I like to think I'm not an asshole, or not about important things, Solix says firmly. You hesitate. Solix is right, and you kind of hate it, but he is right. You don't want to think about this, about how you actually have a chance here, but you have to talk about it first. You want to say that he should just date Dave, since if he dates Dave, then Solix could potentially have other quadrants, assuming that Dave isn't one of those humans that has an issue with that. Whereas with you, not so much. Solix can't date you and Dave, because the idea of being shut out like that makes you die inside. You'd rather not be with him at all than deal with that. But you can't ask him to wait for you to feel ready. That's not fair. Oh, does emotional honesty suck and you hate it too? Solix parrots back at you. You'd be more annoyed at him turning that back on you if he wasn't right. I don't want to keep you from something that makes you happy, and I can't change anything with us right now. So, yeah, do I want you to be with him? Sure, I want you to be happy, both of you. Do I wish I was involved in that at some point? Yeah. Everything with us has never changed, and it's not like I ever stopped having feelings for Dave either. I just don't pay much attention to them anymore. I got used to ignoring it. But you and him, if it works and you're happy, that's what I want. Even if I'm not going to be completely thrilled about it from a selfish kind of perspective. You admit. Solix looks at you like he's not sure exactly what you want here, which, honestly, same. Tell Dave that you want to be with him. Whatever happens, happens, and I'm not going to stop being here for you if it works out. You tell him, as simply as you can manage to. Solix nods, and like that, things move on. You settle back into eating your food, and you find some cartoon to watch where you can heckle the characters for being stupid with their relationships. It's so much easier on the outside, isn't it? Eventually, though, the front door does open again, making you and Solix both jump. It's Dave standing there, because, as Solix pointed out earlier, he doesn't need to ring the bell to get into his own hide. Beck might have needed that, because surely no one has given a bark beast keys. Dave's face turns toward the TV, the bandages still obscuring his eyes. You're back, Solix says. Congratulations on not being blind, Dave replies blandly, and walks into the hive enough for the door to shut behind him. You should try it, Solix shoots back immediately with a grin on his face. I'm also here, but I can go, you say in a nervous rush. Yeah, I know. What do you think I am, blind? Dave snorts, walking around the lounge plank and into his respite block. You can hear him changing, though at the angle that you're at from the doorway, you can't see anything. Did you want me to go? You ask him. Did I say that? Solix can invite you over. I don't... fuck. Dave hisses that last part, and you and Solix exchange a concerned look. How was your night with Teasy? He asks. Beck, glasses, Dave says from within his block, and Beck jumps to attention and rushes in there with him. It was fine. Fun, kinda. It's just that usual Terezi thing. Whenever I have a blind date with her, I end up sticky, Dave says, and Beck rushes out of Dave's block, past you and into Hal's respite block. I'm not taking that obvious bait. Was I right that you just ate candy and food coloring then? I have food left if you want some. Solix offers, leaning over the arm of the lounge plank to be closer to the respite block doorway. Beck hurries past you with something in his mouth now, not that you get a good look at it before Beck's vanished into Dave's respite block once more. Thank you. These are Hal's stupid pointy yellow shades for nerd shit, aren't they? Solix? Dave holds a hand out of his block with a pair of very stupid-looking glasses in his hand. Yeah, why did you ask Beck to bring you them? Solix laughs. I didn't. I wanted my shades, but I don't remember where they are, and I pulled my bandages off with my shirt, and they're sticky anyway, thanks to Terezi, and Dave makes a frustrated noise and cuts himself off. If you need new bandages, why are you asking Beck for glasses? Solix asks. Because the bandages are in the bathroom, and I need to wash my face before I put them on. Dave starts. Wait, do you even need bandages right now? Solix asks him.
Well, no one wants to see that. Dave mumbles that last part.
Want me to find your shades for you? Solix asks after a pause. Dave mumbles something too quiet for you to catch, but obviously Solix hears him. Your best friend gets up and walks into Dave's room smoothly. You just look like you've got your eyes closed. I'm not scandalized. You do have green something in your hair, though. Solix says softly from within Dave's room.
Holy shit, shut up. You're supposed to be looking for my stupid glasses, not at me. Dave huffs.
Hey, I gotta look at all this stupid stuff in this room to find them. Solix snickers. You sit there on the sofa, listening to this exchange like it was something from the cartoon you were watching, a plotline and a dynamic between people who aren't real. You hear Solix's gentle antagonism as he sidesteps around something actually painful, like a demonstration that he's aware enough to pick up on those and trustworthy enough not to cause harm. Pitch as pitch can be. The way Dave talks back in return is leaning into what Solix said, not rejecting his help or assuming that Solix is trying to make fun of him. He trusts him back. There really is something there. Found him. Here. I don't know why they were on a rock, Solix says.
On the shelf? That's a fossil,
Dave says. I can see you're gearing up to tell me about your fossil, but I promise you nothing you tell me right now is going to stick in my head. It's cartoons and Korean food up here right now, and that's it, Solix says quickly.
You're missing out.
Dave laughs quietly and exits his respite block with the sunglasses he used to wear every day at school firmly over his eyes. When you were in school, they protected his light-sensitive eyes from too much brightness, but now, he supposed, they stop people seeing what he looks like without his artificial ones in place. As Dave passes you, the thought bubbles up that you don't know if Dave is so insistent on wearing them because you're here, or if he's uncomfortable being seen like that with anyone. It brings your mind back to Equius's argument about free will and informed consent. Dave didn't get a choice about getting his eyes replaced, and if he feels uncomfortable like this, that's awful. You look back at Solix, who is leaning on Dave's doorframe, watching him leave. It's not just hate on his face there. It's something you'd be inclined to say redder, but you don't think that's entirely right. Pity isn't exactly the word there, but it's a soft kind of expression, like the gentler hues of red romance. Maybe it's outside quadrants at all. Maybe it's just human affection. Whatever it is, it's obvious. Solix catches you watching Dave leave and clearly panics a little at you catching him. There's no jealousy in your pump biscuit, though. You'd thought there might be. Some kind of envy that he has feelings for Dave, and the pair of them seem to be able to do something about it, unlike you. There's no hurt that he wants Dave, nothing like that. Instead, it's your best friend clearly smitten, and you wanting nothing for him but happiness. You smile at him and incline your head in the direction that Dave just left. You can hear him running the water in the ablution block. There's no way for you to silently communicate that you think he should go for it. Instead, you just make a spade shape with your hands and grin at him. Solix looks incredibly flustered and flips you off in response.
Alright, I'm now less mysteriously sticky,
Dave announces as he comes back in the room, pushing his glasses up his nose.
Ah, cool. Do you want real food, or? Solix offers with an awkward cough. Yeah, sure.
Dave nods. Dave heads back over to the coffee table where all of your food is laid out. Instead of joining you on the lounge plank, he sits on the floor by the table. You start pointing out what food is where on the table for Dave, so he knows what's there. As you're doing that, Solix psionically snags another bowl and utensils for him. Honestly, you think you needed a third person for all of this food.
So, tomorrow,
Dave says, around a mouthful of green onion pancake.
Think we should do some balancer training.
I've got work, Solix points out.
Thought you were all eager to learn space magic,
Dave says, and takes another bite. Well, since someone keeps going on about how it's not space magic, the appeal has gone. Also, I'm trying to work on this antivirus with Hal at work, so I need to do that. We can learn things that aren't magic after, Solix suggests, and Dave nods.
Wait, shit, no we can't. I've got a whole thing with Equius that evening. He wants to run a whole bunch of tests on me.
Dave sighs. Day after? Solix suggests.
That'd work.
Dave nods. Dave looks at you, or turns his head in your direction, anyway, and you realize he's wanting to know if you're okay with that plan.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. I'm actually not working at the moment. My boss put me on leave after I got arrested. As you do, I guess. Though, I'm pretty sure arguing with the head of HR on live TV won't do me any favors there. But, yeah, I'm free whenever.
You tell him.
I heard about that, and I heard about the social media thing.
Dave remarks.
Shit, did you read any of that?
You ask in horror.
No, how stupid do you think I am? I'm not gonna go looking for people's ice-cold takes on my life, thanks.
Dave snorts. You and Solix sit there in the uncomfortable silence of two people who have, in fact, interacted with the internet since everything came out.
Wow, okay. Lesson 1, don't do that.
Dave laughs at your expense.
Well, I've had enough of having my intelligence insulted. I'll see you both tomorrow. I'm sure you two want to be left in peace.
You say, as you get up and give Solix a look.
What about Beck?
Dave asks, and Beck looks up from his water bowl to stare at you.
Beck is canine chaos incarnate. He knows no peace. See you tomorrow.
You answer immediately and walk out of their hive, still giving Solix a look as you leave. I have a secret. I have a secret.
It's not a secret for you! I told you about it! I'm choosing to read that as immediate loss of interest. Did you hear the little pingy sounds? There were 2 of them. A up and a down. Yeah, I have a surprise that may or may not ever see the light of day. I'll have to see. It's not yet determined. Yeah, see? Now you understand.
Anyway. Don't you worry about that.
Man. These guys have been so diagnosed with human gay. No sports feelings to be seen here. Even though they were in a sports arena earlier. I guess they didn't have any sports feelings about that. No sports feelings, just gay feelings. Supplies! Man. I love Solix and Carcat so much. And Dave. They're my silly little guys. They're my silly little guys and they care about each other so much.
Well, a little bit of a shorter one. It's only 5:30. Only a little bit shorter, though. Well, I mean, you're upset anyway. Don't even deny it. See? I know. I'm the knowing knower. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the stream so I can upload the VOD. I don't know why I sang that, but there you go. A present just for you. Yay! And if you ever wonder why I feel the need to take you by the hand and tell you everything I ever wanted to say. Then tell me what you think I'd do without you. Hey, I finally improvised in a place that's being recorded! Hey guys! This one's not lost to time! Alright. On that note, on that series of notes even, music joke. I'ma head out. I'm gonna play Fortnite. I'm gonna upload VODs. VOD singular. Yeah, dude, I only have one thing that I only have one thing that I care about after this stream, and that's Fortnite. There are things that I really need to draw. Because, like, first of all, I am still technically in a zine, and I should maybe have more than just a really rough sketch at this point. But also, if y'all remember, I mentioned before, all the way back in chapter 17, that one image of, that Dave keeps of Solix out in the snow being cool with his psionics. And I said I was going to illustrate that. I still intend on doing that. It's like, I'm sure it's over halfway if I were to approximate. But I don't know. It depends on how crazy I get with like lighting effects. There's still plenty to do in that regard though. And I haven't been, and I should. But yeah, I have two pretty large and involved drawings to work on, and I haven't been, Snile. So I should do that,
But we all know I'm going to mostly play Fortnite for the rest of the night. For the rest of the fortnight.
I sent you a bunch. I'll send you more when we get done with it. 'Cause some of them are spoilers for real late game. But yeah. I'm gonna head out. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.